Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Umari ulama have time and again enunciated that rejection of a hadith that's proved to be sahih, especially if a hadith is proved to be mutawatir, such rejection amounts to kufr, infidelity, and apostasy. And the reasoning behind such an assertion is very clear, because the saying or an action that's narrated from the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in a verifiable manner, to reject such a hadith would mean that this person does not submit to the obedience of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, does not submit to the authority of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and it indicates that he does not accept him as his Nabi, as his role model, as the guide anointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, this would amount to kufr. This book here is Miftahul Jannah fil Ihtijaj bis Sunnah, written by the well-known Umari researcher and author and a scholar of peerless stature, Abdul Rahman al-Suyuti, whose patronym is Abu Bakr, published by Idar al-Taba'at al-Muniriyah in Egypt. In the prologue of his book, page number 2, the author has these words about the subject we want to discuss. فَاعْلَمُوا رَحِمَكُمُ اللَّهُ أَنَّ مَنْ أَنْكَرَ كَوْنَ حَدِيثِ النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ. Beware, may God have mercy on you, any person who rejects and refutes that a hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قَوْلًا كَانَ أَوْ فِعْلًا, whether this hadith is a saying of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one of his statements or one of his actions. بِشَرْطِهِ الْمَعْرُوفِ فِي الْأُصُولِ, a hadith that has been proved to be sahih, proved to be valid. حُجَّةً كَفَرَ وَخَرَجَ عَنْ دَائِرَةِ الْإِسْلَامِ. If he refutes such a hadith to be hujjah, such a hadith to be a proof that needs to be followed, such a rejection amounts to kufr, and such a person would be outside the circle of Islam. وَحُشِرَ مَعَ الْيَهُودِ وَالنَّصَارَى, and such a person on the day of judgment would be resurrected and gathered with the Jewry or with the Christians, أو مع من شاء من فرق الكفرة, or whichever other denominations of non-believing congregations that Allah would desire to gather such a person amongst them. روى الشافعي يوما حديثا وقال أنه صحيح. Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, the leader and the faqih of the Shafi'i denomination, one day he recited a hadith and then he added this hadith as sahih. Somebody asked him, أتقول به يا أبا عبد الله, O Shafi'i, do you concur with this hadith? Do you accept the content of this hadith? فاضطرب وقال, Ibn Idris al-Shafi'i became much emotional and upset and said, يا هذا أرأيتني نصرانيا, O Inquisitor, do you think I'm a Christian? أرأيتني خارجا من كنيسة, did you just see me come out of a church? أرأيت في وسطي زنارا, do you see that I've fastened on my waist the belt of the Christian priests or the belt of the Zoroastrian priests?
أروي حديثا عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ولا أقول به.
Is it possible that I narrate a hadith from the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم and I do not concur with it? Is it possible? مجموعة الفتاوى, written by Ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani, the famous scholar that the Salafist cult adhere to his sayings very much. The 12th volume, page number 282. وأما من خالف ما علم أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم جاء به فهو كافر بلا نزاع. Any person who disagrees and rejects something that knows the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has delivered from his Lord, such a person is kafir without any dispute, without any question. كتاب الأحكام في أصول الأحكام, written by Ibn Hazm, a very famous Omari scholar of the Zahiri madhab, who lived in Spain at a time when Andalusia was under the scepter of the Bani Umayyah. First volume, page 99. وقد ذكر محمد بن نصر المروزي أن إسحاق بن راهويه كان يقول. Muhammad ibn Nasr al-Marwazi has narrated that Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, who is a very famous and respected muhaddith, hadithographer of the Umari congregation, who precedes Bukhari in Muslim and lived before them and precedes Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He used to say, من بلغه عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم خبر يقر بصحته ثم رده بغير تقية فهو كافر. Any person who has come across a hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which he acknowledges to be sahih, then he rejects his hadith without any taqiyya, without any fear for his life. Such a person is kafir. ولم نحتج في هذا بإسحاق وإنما أوردناه لئلا يظن جاهل أننا منفردون بهذا القول. The author of this book, Ibn Hazm, says that I concur with Ibn Ishaq. However, I have not narrated the saying of Ishaq ibn Rahawayh in order to present it as the dalil, as the proof of my position. I'm narrating Ishaq ibn Rahawayh in order to show that I'm not the only person who has this stance, who has this position, that rejection of a hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that's proved to be sahih, that is proved that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said or done such and such action or such and such, said such and such words. ولم نحتج في هذا بإسحاق وإنما أوردناه لئلا يظن جاهل أننا منفردون بهذا القول. I did not narrate this statement of Ishaq ibn Rahawayh as a proof for the stance, for the position that I'm taking. I quoted Ishaq ibn Rahawayh only so an ignorant person does not presume that I'm the first person who is taking such a stance. Which stance? The stance that when a hadith is proved to be sahih from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has uttered these words or he has taken this action and this is proved to be valid. Rejection of such a matter amounts to kufr. وإنما احتججنا في تكفيرنا من استحل خلاف ما صح عنده من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم بقول الله تعالى مخاطبا لنبيه صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Our proof for the takfir, for declaring the kufr, the apostasy of a person who regards that opposition to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is acceptable, rejection of hadith is acceptable. Our proof for the takfir and declaration of apostasy of such a person is the verse of the Noble Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Noble Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فلا وربك لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم ثم لا يجدوا في أنفسهم حرجا مما قضيت ويسلموا تسليما. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Surah An-Nisa, verse number 65. But know by your Lord, they can have no faith. In other words, it's not possible for them to have Iman, to have Islam, until they make you, O Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, judge and authority in all disputes between them, and find in themselves no resistance against your decisions. And find in themselves, it means find in their souls and their hearts no discomfort against your decisions, against your rulings, and accept them with full submission. So until they submit fully to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's authority, it's not possible that they would have any faith. This is by the declaration of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Hazm has argued on the basis of this verse that any person who rejects any hadith that's proved to have been evinced by the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, such a person cannot be Muslim. This is the book of Al-Awasim wal-Qawasim, written by Ibn al-Wazir al-Yamani, again one of the Umari scholars. volume number 2, published by Risala Foundation. Page number 364. الثاني إن التكذيب لحديث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم مع العلم أنه حديثه كفر صريح. Falsification of a hadith of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, while one knows that this is truly a hadith of the Nabi صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, is a blatant kufr. If you know something is a hadith of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, and while you know it's the hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you come forward and falsify it and declare it wrong, declare it inadmissible, declare it not worthy to be followed. This is a blatant act of kufr, and such a person is kafir. I do not need to remind you the relevance of this discussion with our topic, which is the hadith of Ghadeer, because we will come and prove to you, inshallah, that the hadith of Ghadeer enjoys the highest form of authenticity and tawatur possible. Therefore, all those scholars of the Umari faith, who on the one hand utter that we are Ahl Sunnah, we follow the hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. On the other hand, they declare that rejection of a Sahih hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is kufr. Then we will show you that they themselves, when it comes to the ahadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about his Ahlul Bayt, either they reject the very authenticity of the hadith knowingly, or they reject the very clear and the very manifest meaning of the hadith, which declares the imamah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam and the superiority of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam over all Muslims, rather over all mankind, including the Anbiya alayhim as-salatu was-salam. And with respect to the hadith of Ghadeer, that all those scholars of the Umari faith who reject the validity of hadith of Ghadeer, and while the hadith of Ghadeer enjoys the highest form of validity, or they reject the meaning of the hadith of Ghadeer, which is very clear that it proves a position higher than imamah. It proves equality with the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam in all aspects except being a Nabi. Then it becomes clear that these individuals cannot claim to have any share in Iman. The leader of the Wahhabi cult, that they are known by his name, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, has written several treatises, 7 books. One of his books is this treatise, Risalatun fi al-Radd ala al-Rafidah. And Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, although he's very influential, because through his alliance with the House of Saud, he was able to conquer vast expanses in the Arabian Peninsula and kill and exterminate his opponents. However, his books are very simple, and he was not a scholar of the same caliber as Ibn Hazm or as Ibn Taymiyyah. As a matter of fact, there is no comparison between Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and Ibn Taymiyyah. That's why you rarely see these days that the Salafis would quote and bring forward the sayings of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, because Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, although very influential, and although he facilitated the spread of Wahhabism in this age through his alliance with the House of Saud, nonetheless his writings and his books indicate a level of being superficial, a level of lack of erudition that the Salafis would rather prefer to hide. This book of his, Risalatun fi al-Radd ala al-Rafidah, a book that he has written against the Shia, it means a treatise and refutation of the Rafidis. And by Rafidis, he obviously means the Shia. This is page number 7. وَاعْتِقَادُ مَا يُخَالِفُ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَالْحَدِيثَ الْمُتَوَاتِرِ Kufr. To believe in something that's in opposition to the book of Allah and mutawatir hadith is kufr. No clarification is needed. His statement is very clear. The Grand Mufti of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in recent years, Abdul Aziz ibn Abdullah ibn Baz, who passed away a few years ago, has a book وجوب العمل بسنة الرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وكفر من أنكرها. This is the title of this book. The obligation of action in accordance to the sunnah of the Nabi صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, and the kufr of any person who rejects the sunnah of the Nabi صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. No further explanation is needed, and we have made our point that the Umari congregation and their grand scholars time and again have enunciated that rejection of an action of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or a statement of his sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is proved to be his indeed, such a rejection is kufr, and I wholeheartedly agree with this statement of the Umari congregation. And then inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, all these confessions and statements would help us in different stages encountering the Umari ulama and Umari scholars. Having presented this, I deem appropriate at this stage to show to you a quote from one of their grand scholars by the name of Al-Qarafi, who passed away at 684. Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Idris al-Qarafi, and this is his book Sharh Tanqih al-Fusul, that pertains to the science of Usul al-Fiqh. And this person was apparently a Shafi'i, and he lived in Egypt, and he is buried close to the tomb of Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i. The book has been published by Darul Fikr. Let me take you to page number 354. ولا يوجد عالم إلا وقد خالف من كتاب الله وسنة نبيه صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أدلة كثيرة.
Who is Al-Qarafi? This is Husn al-Muhadara في تاريخ مصر والقاهرة, written by the very famous scholar of the Umari faith, Abdul Rahman al-Suyuti, volume number 1, published by Isa al-Babi al-Halabi وشركاؤه, دار إحياء الكتب العربية. Page number 316, biography number 69. Al-Qarafi al-Allama. His title was Shahabuddin Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Idris ibn Abdul Rahman al-Sanhaji al-Bahansi al-Misri. انتهت إليه رياسة المالكية في عصره. He was the grand scholar of the entire Maliki denomination at his time. And then he mentions the books he had written and the scholars he had studied under. Then he mentions that Qadi Taqiyuddin ibn Shakar had said, أجمع المالكية والشافعية على أن أفضل عصرنا بالديار المصرية ثلاثة. All of the Maliki and Shafi'i concur that at that time the most brilliant and the most respected scholar were three. Al-Qarafi, the person we are talking about, the other would be Ibn al-Munir and Ibn Daqiq al-Eid. And then he mentions that he passed away at the year 684 after the migration of our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
Declares this alim of the Umari faith, وَلَا يُوجَدُ عَالِمٌ, there exists no scholar of the Umari faith, whether it be from the fuqaha, jurists, muhaddithin, علماء الجرح والتعديل, متكلمين, there exists no scholar إلا وقد خالف من كتاب الله وسنة نبيه صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أدلة كثيرة. There exists not a single scholar who has not opposed many proofs, many hujaj, many adillah from Quran and from Sunnah. Every alim of the Umari faith at one stage or other has disagreed, has opposed many proofs from Kitab Allah, from the Noble Quran, and from the Sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and then he presents his justification for such opposition, why the scholars have opposed Allah's book and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's Sunnah.